brought to you by the Rugby Outlet Mall, equipping you for freedom and connection through rugby. Find out more at rugbyoutletmall.com.
I think the minute I stepped on a practice field for rugby, the calling happened.
An 8-year plan to be on the team, and I was in it within 2 years.
Don't wait until you are a pro to be a pro, right?
Like, I like doing something, stopping and learning from it.
Like, it just looked like it was a heavy hit.
To give up, it's not up.
You know, that's the first time I played like professionally.
I'm making rugby money. How can I make money outside of it?
And there's two Scottish guys, and they said, "Oh, you're here for the movie."
Rugby is a sport where that's often coupled with actually having a good time.
He looked at me and he says, "You guys are awesome."
Roll rugby, roll rugby, roll rugby, roll rugby, roll rugby, roll rugby, roll rugby.
Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. My name is GiftTime and this is the podcast where we get the chance to talk with people about the opportunities that they have found, been able to take advantage, and of course share with us that they've learned via rugby. We have an amazing guest. This is an immaculate young woman, an activist, rugby player, and now she can put on her resume state senator for Rhode Island, Tiara Mack, being on the podcast today. I was so excited to be able to get this one. Newly elected state senator for Rhode Island, just absolutely killing the game from a personal level, a career level, and of course from a rugby level. You guys are going to love this one. She was so charismatic, so great to talk to, so much information, so much look, and the passion for rugby is amazing. And I hope that we get to see more congressional or just political rugby people, because I think the matchup can be very, very appealing in terms of being able to create breadth and wider scope of understanding when it comes to to just life and seeing things. So I was so excited to be able to talk with her. I know I repeated it already, but I'm okay with doing it multiple times. And I hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I know it's been a couple weeks since we've posted a podcast. Of course, the holiday season, if you're watching the video, you'll know I'm not in my normal background. Even I'm enjoying the time with the family. And I hope that even if you didn't get a chance to go see your family, that you had a chance to be able to be with somebody that is, or be with people that you feel warm with. And that's what matters, or at least be able to feel loved. And even if it's just you being at home, just being able to feel comfortable. Like, it might not have been ideal, but at least you're able to feel comfortable. And that's what matters most. So I really appreciate you guys taking the time to listen in on the podcast today. And just let you guys know, of course, we get a hit with the sponsorships. Rugby Outlet Mall, promo code Grow Rugby, GREAUX Rugby. But I just actually want to talk more about what we got stocked up on the website now with the Spectator Starter Kit for Rugby, the newest kit that we have for anybody who is a spouse, a partner, a friend, a parent who's just trying to be able to fit themselves into the rugby climate and find a way to be a part of the community without having to play, or even to be a new fan and just being able to be a part of the community and get to enter in, but you don't know where to start. We got it set for you there. Even on top of that, even if you are a new rugby player and you're like, hey, you know, not only do I want to be able to rock out and understand what's going on with my club, but I want to also understand how the culture works all together and what I need to do it. This is the kit for you, the Spectator Starter Kit for Rugby. And I'm going to say, once again, this one runs under the GiftTime Rugby merch moment. So if you guys use promo code GREAUX Rugby, you guys will get 20% off of any gear that we have on the website. Any under GiftTime Rugby Network or HBCU Rugby Classic. And we got some great stuff that's up on there now and still coming in. Still is coming in. You know, it's not Christmas yet. Yo, you guys can still go get your stuff today. Jump on it. And then, of course, if you guys are with the family, taking some time out, add to the family bonding, you want them to be even more in tune with your rugbiness, yo, you need to check out our documentary, Singapore to Tokyo, Any Way We Can. You absolutely want to check this out. It'll give you another appreciation for the breadth of rugby. And as myself and my friend Jason, we travel from Singapore literally to Tokyo, bike riding across Southeast Asia on our way to the 2019 Rugby World Cup, and we get to meet so many meaningful people who are using rugby to not just have fun, not to just satiate themselves, but to also be able to change culture and community. It is a beautiful story. It's a beautiful documentary. It is very easy to watch. It's 7 episodes, 20 minutes per episode, and I'm telling you, you're not going to want to put it down one bit. Absolutely go check it out, and you guys will not regret a thing. Lastly, before I send you guys in, because you know what, I want to make sure that you guys get to this interview, please feel free to leave a review on Apple iTunes if you're using it, Apple Podcasts if you're using it. It helps us. It helps give us a little bit more data. But leave a review, comment, anything lets us know. And also, don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Grow Rugby Podcast. At Grow Rugby Podcast on IG. I'm thinking of it like it's a website. At Grow Rugby, GREAUX Rugby Podcast. You can find it, and please follow. We post up first there, of course, always. And also, you can check it out, the full interviews, the video interviews on our YouTube page, youtube.com/GiftTime Rugby Network. And you guys can see not just the interviews, but skits, videos, games, highlights. Yo, we bringing it down, all right? And just this, I'm so excited for what 2021 is going to end up bringing. I'm so excited for what 2021 is going to end up bringing. We got so much going down into it, man. And even, like, you know, the news, Women's Rugby World Cup obviously knows 2021. And then, of course, boom, next thing we know, they're going to be adding more teams to the Women's Rugby World Cup. And if you don't understand that, how big a deal that is, I'm going to let you know. It's been 12 teams so far. The last Women's Rugby World Cup, 2017 Ireland, box office smashing, broke records like it's nothing. And if you don't think that in New Zealand, 2021 Women's Rugby World Cup isn't going to be coming back even harder, now you get to see even more teams be able to go up and compete because these women play gangbuster tough. They play fast, fluid, amazing rugby. I would not recommend ever missing one bit of it. And we're going to hopefully be able to be there barring any of this COVID situation escalating even more. So in the meantime, take the time, get to listen to one of the dopest women in rugby right now. State Senator Tiara Mack of Brown Rugby simultaneously. And Providence Rugby. Check it out.
Grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby, grow rugby.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another great episode of Grow Rugby. I got very important incredible I, and the P-est of the P's. You know, personist of the, it doesn't work the same. But hey, we have Tiara Mack, state senator, Rhode Island, rugby player, activist. Yo, Tiara, thank you so much for coming through.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yo, I have to say, I didn't know as much about you prior to whenever we had the conversation with Roots Rugby and everything like that. Mm-hmm. And actually a little bit right before, because they had just started putting out the articles and saying like, yo, you're running. I was like, oh, who is this person? I was like, wait. We got a rugby person like doing like real stuff in the most perfect political time. And then add to that, then we having the discussion and you just being dope on it, like engaging, charismatic. I was like, it made my asking questions a lot easier. Oh, and exactly. It was just like it's. I was like, look, I can talk to this person. I can talk with her. Like this feels right. Like I needed to have the one-on-one convo with you, and just the fact that getting to dig in a little bit more, just how impressive your story really is. Like you really are dope. Like I'm gonna need you to you slowing down, making me be like, yo, I need to go do more work.
Never. The goal is to not have to work because our communities just like work for us. That's the goal.
Facts. It's setting up the system. Let it be self-sustaining within itself, right?
Yeah, that's the goal. Work really hard for the next 10 to 15 years to make a sustainable system. And then, we all get to rest. We just get a big rest.
Yo, look, I know this COVID time has always felt like people have been getting the ultimate rest, but I feel like it always revealed the two components. It was, one, how much we were not prepared for anything. I think that one was always very obvious. And then I think the second one was how much maybe the best way is how much of the time that we needed to kind of refresh our system, whether it was educationally, whether it's restfully, or even, whether it was in a mental aspect or anything like that. There kind of was this sudden, you have a reboot and it's now reality is hitting in a different way. And what you come out of this is something real. For you, is, going in through this year, how has it been for you?
Yeah, well, I announced my campaign in 2019, so very different world. I was like, okay, cool. By this time next year, I think I announced like 13 months before the election. I was like, by this time next year, I'll have knocked on hundreds of doors, talked to hundreds of people, had a really challenging campaign. And then in March, when there was the global pandemic, I was like, this is not what I expected. Like, it would be hard, but I didn't expect it to be so hard and such an uphill battle with so many barriers. And like, not only is it facing a global pandemic, it's like figuring out whether or not my job is going to furlough me because we are a healthcare provider. It's figuring out whether or not I'll be able to like leave apartments or find a roommate because I'm leaving because of the pandemic. It was also having so many different conversations about Black and brown people and police brutality taking up a lot of my headspace and my mental health and wellness. On top of also having a political campaign and being confined to my apartment, not being able to work out in the gym, not being able to play rugby as an athlete, and also not being able to see my friends and family who live back down south and who don't live in the same home as me. So it was a lot of different things. And luckily, I had something like a very stressful and very time-consuming campaign to kind of structure a lot of my days. But I definitely think that if I did not have something that was taking like 60 to 70 hours of my week, I would have had a completely different outcome.
I think that's one thing that I think was underestimated was if you're able to have something to be able to distract you, because I know a lot of people, obviously streaming and social media plays one fact, but I mean to have a purposeful direction, that's where I go back to. The reboot kind of tells us how much purpose plays into our day-to-day lives and how much it genuinely like can drive what we go to, how our mentality to physicality just plays out fully.
Yeah, no, it's also like illuminates that a lot of the problems that exist aren't just because we had a global pandemic that made everything stop. It's like, well, these were problems before there was a global pandemic.
Right.
People didn't have food before. People didn't have a steady paycheck before. People didn't have access to quality health care beforehand. So it's not like these are new problems. These are old problems that got worse because of the virus. And we're still not doing the things that we need to do about them to make things better.
Right. Exposure showed how real everything was. And you know what? And I'm going to get into, obviously, your origin, but I just got to say, even the exposure from companies, the rhetoric that had always been done, where it's like, hey, look, if you work in this hard way or you're doing all these right things, then you're able to sway and succeed. And these corporations exist in that they're impervious. But I feel like unlike what happened in 2008, like this one exposed like how many companies in themselves are running check to check. Mm-hmm. And so much of this was, like you said, the mythos being revealed. The emperor's clothing was shown to not be there, and I think it was in one hand, it was impressive in the fact of like, yo, how much BS was really being band-aided.
It's all smoke and mirrors. It is all
Yeah.
smoke and mirrors, and it's a really elaborate and well-crafted lie, but it is still a lie. The fact that some of these like top companies couldn't afford hazard pay for 6 months still can afford hazard pay, but the first people to go were the lowest paid employees, but the people who are making top dollar at these multi-million-dollar companies are still able to keep their regular consistent check without having to take pay cuts. It's like, whoa, like a 10% pay cut pays for like 5 to 10 employees in some places, sometimes even more. So really just investigating and looking at the systems like, wait, we actually do have enough money. Y'all didn't have to lay off anyone. You just had to take a pay cut. You're making $1.3 million. Like, why? Your lowest paid employee is making $30,000 a year. Take a pay cut during a global pandemic. You don't need $1 million to go on a fancy trip because all the airports
you can't go anywhere.
Everything's closed. And so I think that's also one of the ways that I think this pandemic has been really productive at highlighting that we're not like the crazy radical people who just like want to upend society and change things and be like crazy socialists. It's like, no, like socialist ideals actually work because the system that we have privileges the people who are wealthy and well connected. We've been sold the lie that if you work hard, work every single day, you'll be set and you'll have everything you need. Well, as soon as COVID came and people literally could not work and people were losing their job left and right, and it was people who came from good colleges or good families or had a like well-to-do job. When that wasn't the case, they're like, oh, this could happen to literally anyone. It's like, yes, we've been telling you that for years. It could literally happen to anyone. It could be you, it could be your uncles, it could be your aunts, it could literally just be you. It's a luck of the draw, and our system literally operates on luck and not hard work, and very few people know that.
Yeah, no, that's probably one of the realest things. You could say the system works on luck. And you know, it's always interesting that it's said, but it's always said under breath. It's always said, work hard, do the right things, a little bit of luck, and then you go there. But it's that a little bit of luck and having the right factors kind of come together.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of luck.
Yeah. I mean, it's wild. It's wild. But this has been a necessary evil, in my opinion.
I think so too.
Yeah, like I was gonna say, it's not one that the consequences are harsh, and I don't think they were worth having to learn it this way. But unfortunately, nothing seems to go unless there is something significant.
Yeah, and I also feel like some people are not learning. This pandemic has been, 8 months now? And some people still have yet to learn. I'm like, yo, we actually, you need to learn quicker because we are 8 months in. I want to have a 2021, just like a little 2021. Even if we get 3 months of 2021, give it to me. I think we earned it. But please learn your lesson as well.
Right, and that I do wonder. I do hope that whatever we have for this post-COVID world, well, let me restate that because post-COVID doesn't sound like it's a real thing anymore. What we have in this post-quarantine world, I'm really hoping to see that we are able to get the re-innovations that we desperately needed. I mean, I was really hoping, even from a social standpoint, I'm hoping it still exists in some way, shape, or form, that there's not just seeds, but we have like actual plants that are now growing within the social dynamic that is allowing some of these I'm not going to even say radical, because some of them aren't really even that radical.
There's nothing radical about thinking that people deserve homes and food and jobs and healthy communities. I don't think that's radical. I think that's human and fair and yeah.
I mean, look. Even from a capitalistic standpoint, I would even go like, this is viable. This is beneficial for you. The people who are capable of being sustained are much more likely to be able to purchase from you. If you are not having sustainable people, how can you even work to try and make a profit on anything? Which you start to show, like, happy people are more likely to just give more. If you're willing to provide the floor, then why not go ahead and do it so that you can have a longer term outcome versus
Yeah, and it's cheaper in the long run.
It's cheaper in the long run.
It's
Yeah,
literally cheaper in the long run. We're spending so much money in our society fixing and putting band-aids over problems rather than like getting to the root of them and like pulling out all the bad weeds that are causing all of our grass die. I'm not a gardener, so I don't know why I use that metaphor. But I know nothing about growing things.
keep running with it. They don't have to know this.
I was like, I don't know if grass, weeds, I don't know. But yeah, there are weeds and there's grass, and like pull out the weeds but not the grass.
Right.
I got distracted with the metaphor myself. So
I'm gonna be like, somebody's been in Rhode Island for a while. The South Carolina and the Georgia has been seeping out for a while. No, that's dope. All right, so because I want to continue on this, but I want to get some origin story first because we got to get your background in here.
Yes.
And it kind of helps lead everything up properly. So I always exactly. This is a superhero story, all right? We're in our own Marvel DC universe.
Yeah.
Sometimes more real than not.
Batman tattoo.
Let's go. Look, Tiara, I'm just gonna let you know we're gonna be friends for a while. All right. I'm just gonna put this out. Just know this is just letting you know for the future that we're friends.
Yeah, this is the audition for the friendship post.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, audition in the sense of nepotism. So yeah, sure. I'm auditioning for you now. But kind of what got you started with rugby, and subsequently I'll ask what got you started into activism. But rugby first.
Yeah, well, my older sibling played rugby at the University of Georgia. I was in 7th grade, and I remember going to my first rugby social when I was in 7th grade. Sorry, Mom.
Yo! Yeah. All right, this is a way to inoculate early.
Yeah, we love a good older sibling who really just throws you into the world of rugby. And it was really great. Learned a lot about rugby. And I remember
rugby.
Yeah, rugby is a very diverse sport. Lots of activities, including rugby. But I remember seeing my older sibling play for the first time. I think they got a black eye. They broke their nose. And my mom was like, "What in the world is going on?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, this is like pretty cool. Like, I'm into this." And seeing like the close group of friends that my older sibling had, being at the University of Georgia, playing on their rugby team. And rugby being a really big like centerpiece of their college experience and of their like young adult life, like leaving home and kind of forming an identity at college with a rugby team was always something that kind of resonated with me. And then I always played sports in high school, and then going into Brown University, they sent out an email to all the people who were athletes but who weren't like varsity athletes. They're like, "Oh, you indicated that you played a sport before college. Like, would you be interested in playing rugby?" And I was like, I'd heard of rugby. My older sibling played. I remember like sending back the coach like a super like just like eager beaver email, like, "Oh my God, I've heard of rugby. I know what this is.
I know what this is."
Yeah, and she was probably like, "Okay, like little 18-year-old Tiara, calm down."
How you get like when you read an email? What was like the email version of the chill, like chill.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, I can imagine her. Like, I hopefully she has it saved somewhere, but it was like, "OMG, I know what rugby is. Can't wait to like come out and like test out the team," or something crazy. And I did get to go to Try Rugby Day. I remember this is probably one of my favorite rugby memories. They like gave us like a flyer around campus and said, "Come try rugby." And I was like, okay, yeah, obviously when you go try rugby, they mean just like watch them play, like ask questions. So I showed up in a dress and flip-flops, and they were like,
bruh. Okay, let me go back again. What kind of rugby were they playing over in UG? Did you just go to like a social?
No. I've seen a game, but I thought they were like, I didn't think that they actually wanted us to try it. I thought it was like a play on the word try, like come back. I was like, oh, cool. This is a good pun. And so I showed up in a dress and in flip-flops, and also late because that's just like trademark me because I'm always late to everything. And I was like, oh no. And so I actually sat on the sidelines with an international ref, Emily Shea, who is a dope ref, and like she kind of explained the game to me. And then after that, I showed up to my next practice in workout gear and stayed
a little bit more prepared. A little bit more set for the try this time.
yeah. Stayed, had a couple more things ready to run around. Not a mouth guard yet, but we got there eventually.
It's a process, it's step-by-step process.
Mm-hmm.
No, I can feel that. And, it's interesting because you said, obviously, playing sports in high school, and I'm assuming in middle school. Was it also, did you play contact sports as well, or was it just until you got to be able to play rugby?
Oh, I wish. I played lacrosse in high school, and that was probably the most, contact sport I had played. And there's really, in women's lacrosse, there's really no contact. And I think the NCAA considers rugby a collision sport, which is amazing because I love the high impact collision sport. But yeah, there's really no contact in girls lacrosse compared to men's lacrosse, where they are wearing full-on pads, helmets, hit each other, tackle, go to the ground. And you just wear these little tiny goggles. You have a stick. You can't enter the circle of someone's head. You can do a body check kind of like in soccer, but it's not as physical as something like rugby, which is one of the reasons why I love the sport.
Oh, and was that, look, I talked with Phaedra a while ago, but, it was kind of a similar story of being in Georgia. And I'm wondering if this is something in the water of Georgia where you guys like to be in contact a lot, but obviously the opportunities are sparse. But once you get into that contact range, it's just just beast mode through it and take over. It's like this pent up, I'm going to say the countryness that's just going to go. I'm just going to assume.
I mean, I used to run around in the woods barefoot with my brother and all of you just rough it. And I think it's so fun. And rugby is just such a sport built on the camaraderie of even after a really hard fought game, you can literally curse someone on the field. And then after you're just let's drink a beer, get over it, good game.
Facts.
And I think that's the one thing. It's you're not out there trying to kill anyone. You're not out there trying to shove people in this dirt. You're out there to have fun, do a sport that you love, and do it with people that you respect, and test your body each and every time. I've played rugby throughout very different points of my fitness journey. And I think I've enjoyed it every part. It's sevens. At one point I was yes, sevens is a sport for me. And now I'm yo, I can't keep up, y'all.
Again, chill, guys. Chill. Let's get back to this 50.
This was fun in college when we could keep up. And now that running is hard, no thank you.
Look, you see, the knees don't work the same way that they used to. All right, we got a different dynamic to this.
Yeah, I cut the wrong way and I'm out for the rest of the week.
Whenever you got to Brown, you were able to start playing rugby. Obviously, there was the excitement of having seen it. There was the excitement of being able to find that there was a team with it. But what was your first initial game? What was your feelings about those first moments of being able to really make contact after dealing with lacrosse, really having that team ability? What was that entrance for you like?
Yeah, actually our first game at Brown was against Cornell. We had driven up down to Cornell, and I remember we had never tackled before practice. We had done tackling from the knees, tackling from the hips. We'd never done a full on let's get someone to the ground. We had a really big B side. We had a really good A side. They were always Ivy League champions. So watching them play, we had played, but before our first game, there was we didn't fully take someone to the ground without pads or without kind of going from our knees. And so right beforehand, they were okay, y'all. We watched the A side play, and it was they won their match. And it was an intense game. We were just whoa, our A sides are actually really good, y'all. Are we sure we're gonna play this game? And it was just super funny thinking oh, I've never tackled. And so we did our first tackles 10 minutes before the game as part of the warm up. They're there's no fear, you've got this. And then we went out and played. And I can't remember if we actually won, but because that's not important right now. But
I feel I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. In one part it's yo, you had so much fun, where it's the score's oblivious, or the score was so bad that you guys just were like, I don't even want to think about it.
ESAC match, like we literally we knew the rule, like ball only goes backwards, but like there was a kick and we're like, what is going on? And there was like, this was back when like offsides was like also like the last foot of the, I mean, rugby rules have also changed, and this was like the first like crouch, bind, pause, engage.
When they had just made the switch over.
Yeah, so this is
we 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, well, this was my first year playing was like 9 years ago now, but it's been a minute. But yeah, I think it was so fun, and just like also had no idea what was going on, especially like 15 rookie players, most of us freshmen, running around, kind of like little kid soccer. But I mean,
right.
the pure like joy of just being on the field, and afterwards hanging out with the other team, socially, eating food, and all those things that just come with playing rugby. And even the bus ride back from Cornell with all of my like teammates, I think there were like 40 of us on the team at the time.
Nice.
Speaking about the game, like riding a big bus with like 40 of your closest friends, all just like got done playing rugby. And I think there's like no greater feeling. And being fortunate to be on a club team at the time, like my first years at Brown was a club team. By my junior year, we became a varsity program, but we were fortunate enough to still be able to travel by bus. And so being able to travel by bus, stay in hotels when we had faraway games, like the camaraderie that you build with your teammates. And this is also the first sport that I ever played with people who looked like me. We had so many Black women, we had so many brown women, we had so many Indigenous women. And I think that was like seeing like the pictures of like my first year playing, there's like 10 beautiful brown smiling like faces, just like in rugby uniforms. And I think that was like the best feeling. And there's bodies that look like mine. I was always the biggest like volleyball player. I was always the biggest like lacrosse player. And even though I've been an athlete basically my whole life, I'd always been built differently than the other people. And I'd never seen bodies that looked like mine, and being able to go to a sport where they're like, oh, you've got rugby legs. And I remember that being a compliment. They were like, oh, you've got like thick thighs, you got thunder thighs. They're like, oh, you got some rugby legs. Like, good, you got some scrum legs. And so I remember just like feeling so welcome, and finally seeing bodies and people who look like me playing a sport, and being just like unapologetically badass, like hitting someone. There's like no greater feeling.
Just true story. You know, I remember even for me, like football was my basis, high school, and in college I didn't get to really do as much. But you know, we would always have some small games here, and I even remember at the time I didn't really think anything about rugby, but whenever I finally found it in Baton Rouge, and there's that anticipation of waiting on the sideline, I think, at your first game, where you're just like, oh man, okay, yo, look, I'm just waiting. I can't wait to get in. And then the coach just tells you, all right, kick in, go kick in. And you want to sprint on, and like, there's something like the air is different. The field feels different. And like when you're going into your runs, like everything just resonates differently. Even the hits is just like, oh, right. This feels so good. It hurt a little bit, but it feels so good. But it didn't hurt as bad. But it's a high endorphin rush. But the interesting part from what you're talking about that I like was at this Ivy League that you're having all this diversity, where you, again, you know, if you took it off of what common thought would say, is that, and then not to say that it might not be different, but the fact that there is not just all these brown bodies, black and brown bodies, but you have these highly educated up in this area being able to show that it's not just as athletes, it's like brains to body as well as anything else. So allowing the full roundness of a person to be able to come out of that moment, even if it's subtly done.
And even all of my teammates, all of my teammates are badass. I am so fortunate to have played with and against so many amazing athletes and people. A lot went on to like who studied like really amazing things. Like off the field, they were either like always studying, were amazing singers, had so many different talents outside of rugby. And I think that was another thing that really pulled me into the Brown rugby like world. Everyone was not just like amazing on the field and wasn't just like a like high class like hardworking athlete. Everyone else was also really driven in their personal lives, whether it was artistic, whether it was academic, whether it was some other pursuit, like they gave 100% and had so many different passions. And I think that was like, wow, like you can be super passionate about so many different things and still give every single aspect your all. And some of my teammates have gone on to do like amazing things. My old roommate, who is also a rugby player, played with all 4 years and was my co-lock at one point. She is currently in law school at UCLA. I have another teammate who I also locked with, and she is doing a PhD program at Yale. I've got a couple of other former teammates who are in law school, who are in med school, who are just like really excelling in their careers, who are dope, badass teachers, making sure that the next generation of young people have amazing, affirming educators. Some work in tech and some work in the finance industry. They all just do so many amazing things and are overachievers and high achievers in each of their own respects. And I think that's the community that I really needed to get through school, but to also like navigate the world after, and to do it with fellow athletes and fellow rugby athletes was a really great bonus.
No, and you can't not to be able to have a network like that, and not just a network, just a support system like that, because it does allow you to say, I'm not alone in this. And it's one of those very underestimated feelings to know that you have support from people who are very similar. Not because, you can always have familial support and friends outside of it, but they might not know the exact struggle because they don't relate. So to be able to have so many people who were able to relate to the work both on and off the field has to have been just another Cloud 9 situation, if one would say.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask, because we always talk about opportunities that are kind of created out of rugby. For you, obviously, you took the dynamic of being able to become more of an activist, and as obviously proceeded into the political sphere. For you, like, how much did rugby play into your starting to be able to learn and understand the depths of the social systems and political systems that led to where you're at now?
Yeah, well, like I said, it was a really big blessing to go to Brown and have so many teammates who looked like me. In the context of greater varsity athletics at Brown, there were people outside of the rugby team who were Black, who were brown, who were Indigenous, and who were formerly low income, who came from low income families, who came from places that weren't like big cities. And so to be a minority within this like sports culture at Brown, it was definitely tough, but I think it highlighted, like, when I first started, we were a club team. We weren't a varsity program, and we had to fight to get varsity status. We were the blackest team, the brownest team, the team with one of the highest GPAs, the team with one of the highest socioeconomic spreads amongst all the athletic programs within our school. And we were also the only one that was competing at a high level, competing in the Ivy League and outside of the Ivy League. It wasn't a varsity sport. So I think seeing the injustice there, like, this team looks so much different than the soccer team, than the softball team, than the swim team, than the water polo team. And yet we don't have the same access to resources, like having personal trainers. We're playing a high contact sport. We don't have the personal trainers that the and this is like no shade to like the swim team, but like the swim team is not ramming their bodies into like other people. Like, they're definitely working hard as athletes. The tennis team as well, and other like the equestrian team. These athletes all work hard, and they deserve to have like a varsity program that makes sure they have PTs and a weight program and folks to like make sure their injuries are addressed like right then and there. But why can't that also exist for a varsity program like rugby? So seeing the treatment between us and other programs, we always had like the worst field times. We had to fight for field times, especially in the winter when it's snowing. We didn't have access to practicing outside because it would go to varsity programs. So in the winter, we'd have to practice in an indoor setting at like 11 p.m. And we also still had classes the next day. And so feeling kind of like, whoa, like, why is it that we're getting treated like this? And it's like, you look around and it's like, whoa, like, you're Black, I'm Black, she's brown. And the people who are not treated like this don't look like this. So I think that was, yeah.
They're a little different. There's something different.
Yeah, something's off. But I think that was like the first, using the sport to kind of ground like, hey, this is unfair treatment. And I'd seen that in other places, whether it was coming up from my conservative Christian background in the South and coming to a more liberal setting where there were more conversations about sexuality and health. And I'm like, whoa, like this is different, y'all. And so I think that like really helped activate my voice. And like I said, the rugby team was high achieving people on and off the field. And I was like, well, I also have to like pour myself into things that that resonate with my values and with my skill sets. And so by the time I was a junior, we actually were elevated to a varsity status at our university. And rugby is now becoming an emerging sport in the NCAA, and there's more NCAA varsity programs popping up all around the country and in the Northeast, which is really great to see. Like fellow Ivy League schools also became varsity, Harvard, Dartmouth. I don't know if there's any other programs just because I'm no longer tapped into the college world, but seeing other programs become varsity and to see other athletes have the opportunity to get recruited to play a high level sport, to have access to healthcare, physical therapy, and weight training to make their bodies even stronger, to elevate the level of play that we're able to get to have top level coaches is a real big privilege. And I don't think that if we had an advocate for things like that, we wouldn't have got it. And the sport of rugby wouldn't be growing the way it is in the Northeast and across universities where there's now more and more varsity programs. We're an emerging sport in the NCAA, and it can only go up and emerge even more from here.
No, I believe that. And I've always felt like, and look, it might sound a little cliche at this point, but it's something that I still feel it always needs to be said, especially when it comes to the women's side of rugby. It seems to have been the part that has, I don't understand. I mean, I guess there's always historical context because of culture, but like even in this day and age, especially over the course of the last 10 years, how it's not the considered ultimate key component to the growth of the sport, and why it has been such a slow development into trying to initiate that, because you find it, and this is what I've liked, especially with the growth of NAIA and and how they've developed through, is you know for a fact that in maybe other sports there might be, for lack of a better word, a cultural precedent that gets kind of put into place. Rule changes that are done that got implemented in, and it kind of creates a perception dilution of the sport for whatever reason you have. But within rugby, one of the biggest advantages has been that regardless of gender play, you get the same rules, the same action, the same field sizes. There's
same
really
ball size.
Same ball size. Everything stays consistent. So the base foundation that you needed to have is done. So if you're performing it with it, then all you have to do is show that you can perform at the level. And then as you got to see even over time, and I feel like the 2017 Rugby World Cup, but even probably for me personally, I would say 2016 Olympics kind of really solidified the factor that on a major public stage, women's rugby is able to thrive as much as anybody else from the elite. And that's what you need to know. If you can see it done at the elite, then everything kind of trickles down from there. So to have such a slow effect of wanting to be able to support it when it genuinely has all the properties needed to be both entertaining, be a spectacle, be talented, and you also have the population to be able to actually invest into the sport properly. Yeah. It's been a weird, like I said, it's been a weird, slow drive.
I'm like, I like football, y'all, but like, it doesn't do it for me. Like, even just like seeing a diversity of sports in the States, like people go, I think there's like Thursday night football, Friday night football, Sunday night football. And I'm like, yo, okay, like let's maybe give a day to soccer, to rugby, because there's so many sports that people can get into. And I will not pretend to know the rules of football. And I'm like, people are like, well, the rules of rugby are confusing. I'm like, yo, the rules of football are confusing. I cannot even tell you what's going on half the time. So I think it's definitely it's sad to see that it's such a slow on ramp, but like I think that's why it's so cool to see rugby programs growing at the collegiate level and also growing at the club level in cities. Like I'm fortunate enough to live in a city that has a really solid rugby program as well. living in Providence, having another like world-class coach, having a phenomenal team that's gone to the Elite Eight for the past 3 years, and this would have been our 4th #COVID.
I like the low-key humble brag while also simultaneously the sympathy. Yo, I like this.
Yeah. That's
I like
why I
it.
say entire like personality. I'm like, oh my god, I'm so humble. Look at how amazing I am. Just kidding. Humble brag, y'all. But yeah, I think it's super important that rugby's accessible across all different age groups, and that's why I'm excited to like even like the idea of having rugby growing at the youth level. Like the younger you play, the more confident you are. A lot of people are like, oh my god, it's a contact sport, concussions, blah 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 blah. It's safer than football. It's safer than lacrosse. It's safer than soccer. There's less concussions. And if you learn how to use your body right at a younger age, it becomes even more safe. And it's just so freaking fun. Like, there is nothing more fun than rugby. And I think it's the one team that I've been on. Like, yes, I had friends who played volleyball with me. I had friends who were on my lacrosse team. But all of my homies play rugby.
Yo, and look, and I think that's one of those things that have been so integral into the rugby culture. Mm-hmm. And it's really interesting because you kind of made a point about, like, you know, the different days where there is basically, you know, football and sports. But, you know, it was something that I kind of even learned recently. And I had the pleasure of watching this documentary. You promote whatever. It was literally called A Rugby Story. And after watching it, it kind of put everything into place. And I think it'll kind of match into what I wanted to ask you next. But, you know, one thing that's always been interesting about rugby is the fact that as much as it's been a diverse sport, it has been built off of elitism. All right. Mm-hmm. And
yeah,
you know, its whole component has been about restriction, not about growth. And the reason why you had like soccer and American football be able to spread was because it related down to the common folk. The only sport that I think that came out of this rugby elemental spread, historical spread, might have been rugby league, which, you know, in Australia and New Zealand, a lot higher, but in North England, I guess. But it hasn't really pushed the same level across the world. But again, soccer and American football really hit their levels because of the fact that they attracted to the common man versus trying to hit the elite. And I think that was one culture of rugby union that's now hit us to this day, where we know once you get inside rugby, it's almost like, I don't understand how this is not bigger than what it is. Mm-hmm. You know, but then you realize like the culture, the historical culture of it that just resonates, whether it's in abject amateurism, which isn't wrong, but it's the way that it's trying to suppress everything into it, has kind of proven its lack of ability to market itself outside of just like, you know, this pure amateuristic way. And I think that's what has always been able to hurt where it comes to like, yo, why aren't you getting this day? You should be able to win this day. You should be able to have this. You have all the tools. Why are you not able to build this sculpture?
Yeah. Well, it's also interesting if you look at some of the islands where they start playing rugby at such a young age. Their like pickup game is soccer. We have is rugby. We have some cultures' pickup game is just soccer, or here we have basketball or football.
Right.
And if we get folks started at a younger age, it's also super cultural. If you grew up with your parents and their friends hanging around, throwing around a rugby ball on the weekend at a cookout or at the beach, and you'd be like, oh yeah, this is just our regular pastime. But if you grew up and that's not the culture, then it's going to get harder and harder to like get into the sport. Like learning rugby in college, it's a steep learning curve. I don't think I actually knew how to play rugby or knew all the rules in rugby for like the first 2 years. I was kind of just like, yo, I'm a forward. I just hit people. I don't touch the ball.
Right.
We hit the thing and then we get up and we hit the other thing. That's what we do. And then so learning a little bit more of the nuance of how to play rugby. And it's like, oh, like forwards can also be key attackers. You can move around the field. But I think it's like getting people started young, getting ingrained with the culture as young as possible, having more youth sports, having a rec league of rugby, having your little like 5-year-olds running around playing flag rugby, and just building that love from an early age and having families built around rugby. I know so many people who have kids who like, I want my kids to play rugby, but it doesn't exist. And it's like, well, we got to have more people bringing their kids into the sport of like rec league rugby.
Yo, and that's really it. It is again, it's setting culture. Everything always comes back to setting culture, and I think even in this period right now, we have, and again, I will reference back to the pandemic, and again, the misfortune of what the cost of it is, but because there was so much that got negatively hit, I feel like it allows the opportunity to be able to reset how you're looking at these things and how, you're going about dealing with these youth rugby, and also creating and exposing them to more aspirational people within it, even like yourself, to be able to say, hey, I played rugby at a great school, and even if it's not at the school, played rugby, it created this network, it taught me this dynamic, and it allowed me to be able to have the setup.
Yeah, there's a rugby player that's an astronaut. Like, what kid doesn't want to be an astronaut?
Facts. Jessica Watkins. Look, do me a favor and just shout her out and be like, yo, Jess, we need you on this podcast.
If you want to be friends, also hit me up. Just kidding.
Let's go!
Look up to her, who are also rugby players. So, like, wow, like, I didn't know that I could, like, go into this. It's like, yeah, like, it's just a sport that, like, breeds such a great community, and I just want more people to be exposed to it. Also, like, I just selfishly love all rugby people because we're the best people.
Oh, no, that's facts. Like, it is, even from, especially, and I don't know, have you ever gotten a chance to travel with rugby outside the country?
Yeah, undergrad, we got to play against McGill. We also traveled to Switzerland and the Czech Republic to play the Czech national team and the Swiss national team.
Doesn't it change just the perspective of how you look at rugby? You're just like, oh my gosh, this really is a unified network. This is a unified culture out here.
Yeah, it was super dope. And then I also, in 2018, traveled to Ireland and Northern Ireland to see the Rugby World Cup with my older sibling. And fingers crossed, we will get to be able to see the World Cup in 2021, October.
I'm here. Look, New Zealand 2021. Let's get. I've literally set my schedule up for this. Look, I already got the Olympics in the bag. I need this Women's Rugby World Cup. This one is the one I wanted to have it all put together in it. I'm just like, guys, just whatever you guys do with COVID, just find a way to make it stop, because I want to get in on this.
Yeah, I mean, I'm like, yo, it's in October. I'm like, that's enough time for us to get our act together, y'all. Stay home so we can finally go to New Zealand and watch the Rugby World Cup. And if that's selfish, I understand. But
no, that is good selfishness. It's selfishness that helps the world, all right? It's like, I want everybody to be better so I can get what I need, all right? Think about me,
and it helps all my friends who want to travel to New Zealand to watch the Rugby World Cup.
No, facts. And I'm that's one part. Oh my goodness, I really am hoping that they get this all together by then. I'm hoping at least, hopefully by June, like just guys, just please, like
please. I don't know how else to beg. Like, this is also the longest time I've gone without playing rugby, and like, fortunately, my team has had some we had a fitness competition. Still been doing like workouts. Some of my teammates also were some of the people who helped me on my campaign the most, knocked doors for me, were some of my biggest donors and biggest supporters. But it's hard not having that community. You go from seeing your people every single or Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturdays, and that's like your schedule. And especially for some people, your time with rugby is so limited. Like, your body has limits. Things start to creak, things start to break. You get a little bit older, you have more responsibilities, you start having kids. Your ability and like time limit of playing rugby kind of dwindles, and you want to get as much time out of it as possible. And like, we all mandatory get an extra year of playing rugby. That's it. Like, we all have
just run it back again. Like, this one didn't count. Just run it back. We just starting over. So you kind of mentioned something in there, and I want to catch this. So how much of it, in fact, were you able to, that your rugby, well, actually, even being in Providence initially, being able to understand that community, what was that process like? And And for you, how did, because clearly rugby played a factor into your being able to also help with that as well too. How did they kind of work, and how did you start to get to know your community itself?
Yeah, I mean, being an activist definitely helps. And the field where we play rugby is actually right in my district. It is in one of the, kind of unfortunate, but it's in one of the hotbeds of the highest asthma rates because it's in the Port of Providence, which has some of the highest pollution in the country and one of the 9th highest asthma rates in the country. And that's where we play rugby. And it's so weird because oftentimes you see people who have to choose to play rugby at all these like crazy different fields, and you line it like an hour before the game. And we also practice at like ragtag places. And so to be able to understand when families are on the doors like, oh, our air quality is not good, there's always this weird smell. And I'm like, I actually know firsthand, like that's where I play rugby. I play rugby right down the street. I know how sometimes the air is hard to breathe, but there's like a noxious smell that prevents quality of life. And just being like another real person, I'm like, oh, like what do you do in the community? Doing CrossFit at a gym where the trainer also played rugby. Knowing people at the gym who live in my community who also played rugby or have connections to rugby. Being able to say like, hey, I know what things are important. Having even the Providence Gay Flag Football League. It's like, oh, there's another queer athlete who is interested in sports and adult recreation. Being able to say those are like parts of my identity and like those are things that I enjoy, and not just like I sit home and read books, which I also do, but being like a real full autonomous person that can connect to people. Rugby introduces you to so many different people from so many walks of life, and you just learn how to connect with people on a different way. And I can probably have conversations with 15 different types of people because that's what you have to do on the rugby field. You got to learn how to talk to everyone of your teammates. And so I think it really helped me navigate those relationships and get to know my city in a different way, either from being an athlete, being someone who works out in the city, also being involved in youth sports, working with young people. I was a wrestling coach because I was a rugby player. They were like, they had a young women's wrestling coach for middle school, and they're like, we don't have any female wrestlers. And they're like, you play rugby, why don't you like help us out? And I was like, I know nothing about wrestling, but yes, I do know how to tackle people. Sure, I'll help out. And so being involved with our young people that way, and being a huge proponent of youth sports and working at the local YMCA, where I'm also on the board of that YMCA, and saying fitness and athletics is really important to me. How can we grow a family's interest in physical activity, in sports, build a sports culture, either with basketball or with swimming or even rugby, thinking of ways that we can engage holistically in what it looks like to be healthy and happy and engaging your community. I think those are all things that stem from my athleticism, which is also tied to rugby, and just being part of a larger community of sport players.
Oh, and I think that's so awesome because you don't really, I mean, obviously there's a lot of tie-ins, but the level of the tie-in that goes in and obviously how much it resonates downwards, I think, again, it gets underestimated in it because it's such a simple way. I'm not going to say easy, but a simple way to be able to connect in with the community because everybody can connect under physical education, can connect under a team dynamic and stuff like that. And to then be able to have the insertion into these executive positions, even talking about being on the board for the YMCA, I wouldn't even really have thought about that unless, in terms of being able to set up for a further, ironic political run moving forward. But it does really insert you without having to feel inorganic.
Right, exactly. And I think that's the best part about these connections. They're all organic. It's not like I tried to do this. It's like my love of sports, my love of like working in the community led me to the YMCA, led me to being an activist, led me to running. It just so happens that I play rugby at a field that is in my community where there is an environmental hazard that I know firsthand experience. And it's all happy coincidence, but it's different ways that you can relate to people. And it's completely organic and just like a product of doing what I love and living my life.
From doing that, and I always say this, rugby, especially at the club college levels, always has the biggest issue in maybe not so much into getting the community, but a little bit in the community, but even in engaging when it comes to spread word, just, talking about that previously. For you, whenever you started doing your campaign, did you feel like there was stuff that you could take now from doing this campaign run, that bringing it back to the rugby club, you're like, hey guys, this might actually be able to help us on the low key? Like, I didn't even think about it until I had to do this. Like, but were there some of those elements that you were starting to see that you were like, this has a much wider spread and that can also help the agendas that I have that are not just that work for my even personal goals and ambitions?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways I want to plug the rugby community into the amazing and awesome things that are happening in my community, whether it's like doing food banks and food drives. I had teammates who were helping me for Thanksgiving drop off cans of green beans. I had to collect 450 and had teammates who were helping me with that. Doing a toy drive, making sure we're going to school, encouraging the next generation of young people to engage in either secondary education, college, or careers and trades that rugby folks might be in. Having rugby folks who are doing amazing things in the community. They're contractors, they're builders, making sure they know that we're trying to build sustainable and green homes, and how can we partner with them to make sure that we have more wind turbines, more solar energy on top of the homes that they're building with their own company, working with the rugby teammates to figure out more ways that we can have more adult recreation. All the different ways that the connections within having a large women's side, a men's side, and extensive alumni who've played rugby for the Providence team, for Brown, and for other clubs that I've been a part of or that other teammates have been a part of. I think it's really important that like rugby has a lot to offer, and we're such a diverse community. People inside of rugby have so many different interests, and there's so many different ways to cobble us and plug us into the amazing things that are happening in a community.
No, I love that, because it changes just the dynamic of what rugby being just a sport, or just the crazy, some people call it the crazy white boy sport, or that just those things, those guys over there, to an actual integral part of the development of the country, not just in and of itself. So, I love being able to see that you've continued to wind that through, and you're just setting up a blueprint that I hope that not only you continue to share, but people actually utilize more and more, because it is significant at all levels.
Yeah, hopefully there's more rugby players out there running for office.
No, I hope so. And look, if we can get the all congressional rugby all-star team, let's go.
Yeah, let's go. Like, if we get that whole like a chamber, just like all in like rugby, like, what? I'll train you. Let's go.
Yo, do you think that you're gonna be surprising, like just randomly do a line out, just lift on a line out on one of these senators, just be like, look, it's all love, rugby love. Don't worry about it. It's just
funny enough, the governor of Rhode Island actually did play rugby in college, and so. Like there's a slowly like crescendo of rugby players ascending the ladder in Rhode Island. So you can have it happen in your state too.
The takeover is real. Look. We can do this. We can do this. So
honestly, it's a long game, y'all.
The funny part is, I really do believe that we can do it.
No, same. Like, hit me up after this. I've got a plan. We'll talk.
We gotta prep it right. Kind of winding down and just kind of want to end it off, correctly. For you, obviously, now as you take this next level as senator in a couple months, and you're going to be into implementing. Like for you, I know you've probably said this on a million interviews before, but. You know what? It's another platform, so whatever. For you, what is it that you are hoping to be able to achieve in this initial run? And obviously, not just achieve, but hopefully that you're able to learn and take in for yourself from this next run as a state senator.
Yeah, well, I think the biggest thing is staying true to my values. Like, as a formerly low-income person, housing, especially during this pandemic, is going to be one of the things that I'm going to be ride or dying for. Like, we got to make sure that people are housed, making sure that we're focusing on wealth inequality, focusing on ways that we can make sure there's money in the pockets of the people who need it most, and it's not being hoarded at the top. and making sure we also are listening and reflecting on who our working class is and how we can make sure we're elevating our working class. And also just like being badass and unapologetic about all the ways that I'm going to fight for my community along the way. I don't want to be someone who's afraid to like say like, fuck that. I don't want to be someone who's afraid to say that, what if that's too radical? What if no one else believes it? Because a lot of people didn't believe that I'd win. And so I think it's definitely important to challenge what people thought was possible before in politics and really change the idea of status quo, and challenge people like, hey, everyone should have food, everyone should have a house, everyone should have access to their basic needs being met. And how do we do that through policy? And if we all believe that at the end of the day, we can create communities that look better than the communities that we started with.
Yo, I love it. And I think, like you said, none of those are radical ideas, but they're very common sense. But to know that, you got to teach people to sometimes look at the long term without being so awestruck by their short term need for reasons. That's what I like to say. Short term need for reasons. So I'm happy to be able to see it. And where can they find you? Because now that you're a public servant, people can be able to know how they can address even if they're not in the state of Rhode Island, senator to be.
Yeah, I have Insta, Facebook, and a website and Twitter, all at Mack District 6, and my website is tiaramackdistrict6.com, and that's all the number 6. Follow me on Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. Those are the platforms that I'm most active. And then for more information about my platforms and policy papers and ideas and like more cute pictures of me, my website.
Yo, Tiara, thank you so much, and look, I know you're gonna be busy, but somehow I'm gonna find a way to get you back in just to be able to do like another update through.
Yeah, well, if you're recording at the Rugby World Cup in October, I'll be there.
Done. All right. Yo, Tiara, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And guys, please definitely check her out. Definitely give your support, and obviously be able to. It's just inspirational to see somebody doing big things and utilizing what they've learned through rugby, what they've learned in life, but learned through rugby, and being able to utilize it in a practical way that just generates them up. And, again, you can't match that kind of passion for just wanting to be helpful in that love for rugby. I genuinely appreciate it, and I appreciate you guys for taking the time to listen. Please take a listen to some of our other podcasts. We had last time the host of Black Girls Ruck podcast, Ann Onwusiri. We've had Jackie Finland of the Rugby Breakdown. We have had Chetta Emba for USA Rugby. We've had Kyle and Tiana Granby of Roots Rugby. We've had James Brunson of the North Philly Nomads. You can actually watch their movie The Nomads on Amazon now. We've had Adam Gray Hayward of the movie Play On, which actually that movie kind of disappeared. It used to be on Amazon, and we got to find a way to get that movie back. But great interviews. We've had great people, Nia Tapper. We have had Blaine Scully on there. We have had Phil Thiel. We have had Nicholas Walcott. We've had some great, amazing guests that just listen to that have been improved. Amelia Luciano, World Rugby Ref, just absolutely want to be able to check it out and listen and just get to know these people and know how important their contribution is to rugby. And not just theirs, but your contribution is just by taking the time to listen, learn, and be able to use that for what you need to. But in the meantime, I hope you guys have an amazing holiday. I hope you guys have this amazing little tweener between the holidays. And I hope you know I hope you are happy. I hope that you're healthy. And I hope you know that you are highly favored. Talk to you later. Cheers.